This tab, the discretionary dollars by...
Yes.
But before we go on, I have a question. And you mentioned a while ago donated food to the food bank. Like, well, maybe
6 million.
will it have to go back in the budget now for sure?
Yes. Yeah, we need to put the estimated food cost into the budget.
Kelly, do you want?
Yeah, what that it represents is the value of the donated foods that we get from USDA.
Yeah.
And this was an accounting change about 4 years ago. We didn't used to budget or report the value of that, but about 4 years ago, the audit firm said, that's a grant just like anything else. And so that's when we started valuing the food. And when the group does their operational budget, they're looking at their operations, and it just got omitted. It's grant dollars, it's not discretionary.
So basically, it goes in as a revenue and then out as an expense. So it's
Exactly,
a wash.
it's a wash.
Okay. So you're saying we don't need to add it back into the budget?
We do.
We will.
We need to formally add it back in.
Okay. Take care of it.
We will when we get to that point, right?
Okay.
Or you can move now, whatever you want to do on that.
Well, I'd just as soon do it now, so I'll make a motion to go and add it back in at this time.
Okay, the motion's been made that we add it back in the value and seconded. Any discussion? Okay, that's for the donated food.
Technical correction.
And
Okay.
it's revenue neutral, right, Doug?
Yes, revenue and expenditure.
Yeah.
The wash.
It's a wash
Technical
item.
correction.
But it does need to show up as
Yes.
an income and then something we're giving away. Okay. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay.
Okay. And I will add that I believe, as far as I know, that takes care of the technical issue with Ms. Calvin Watt's motion and Mr. Butler's motion. I believe that takes care of everything I'm aware of as far as technical issues. This particular tab shows all the discretionary funds that we just talked about and the group of which who's expending them. Now, you can go through. I would recommend that as long as we understand that this allows us to see a funding source at a high level, a group level, okay? I think where you're probably going to want to focus is the tab that has level 3, because that's where the actual purpose of the actual program level is. So you go from 1, you'll notice if you turn to the next tab, for instance, let's take, for instance, health services has a $12.2 million decrease in gen fund requests. Okay, on page 9. Well, let's turn to the next tab. Let's turn to page 18. See, here's gen fund again. Now, these are all in the same order. It goes gen fund, motor fuels, all through that list of discretionary funding sources that was bolded and had a little asterisk by them earlier. Now, you go down through here and go 2/3 of the way down the page, you'll see health services. Now you can see the $12.2 million decrease by department. The group leader has a $6.5 million decrease. Clinical support service, $5.4 million decrease, and slight decrease on community health preventive services. So we're enabling here to drill down into the department level, and then of course the next step is the next tab. Now let's look at the actual programs. And just to continue with this example, under Gen Fund, at the bottom of that page you'll see like a group page, so many of 10. You can go over to 4 of 10, which is page, 5 of 10, which is page 33. And you'll see health service, $12.2 million. Okay. This tab, I believe, is where a lot of the questions can get answered as far as what's new to the budget and what's been removed from the budget. 'Cause I've had a lot of questions from counselors in the last few days of what's in it, what's not in it, what's new, what was removed. This tab right here is where we can focus to get those questions. Now, if you'll turn back to the beginning of this tab here, page 29, okay, we're first looking at the general fund, which is the most discretionary funding source for the Cherokee Nation. This is largely our dividend income and other governmental revenues that are not specific in what they're, such as motor fuels or motor vehicle tax. Okay, so as you can see here, the items and what their budgets are doing. It starts off again by an organizational structure. The division office of the chief is first, and then each one of the departments under the chief, and then all the budgets underneath those departments. Now, I draw your attention to these pages is because when we get into the group's discussion, okay, now I've got other slides, and I've got obviously other tabs here where I focus on one group at a time. And we look at what's that group doing with its funding, where's its funding coming from, and what programs are they administering with that funding. This is where you can go if you're focused only on discretionary monies. Then you come back to this level 3 tab. If you're looking at motor fuels or if you want to look at Gen Fund, you can always go back here, find that division, okay, and that's the only funding source you're looking at. There are several new budgets in here. All those new initiatives that we went over, Callie went over, and I went over $11 million, they're all identified in these first 10 pages in Gen Fund. There's several budgets that are the ones that are zero in 08 and have dollars in them in 07, obviously are the ones that were removed. You can also see here from the Gen Fund where the significant increases are occurring. So the percentages change are in there as well as comparing to the 06 actual. Are there any questions what these sections of this report are doing and why they're in here or how they're hopefully these sections enable you to be able to quickly find something of interest to you.
Yes. For example, on page 29, if you go to the Employee Appreciation Day for $2,813,000, where do you get the breakdown of that?
Blue book. The lowest. This is the to get lower than this level is the accounts, the actual line item detail. Okay, so I go down to this level as a total purpose, and the Constitution, identifies the word purpose, and we've always, as far as I've been here, we've always interpreted that word purpose to mean an accounting unit or a cost center, not line item accounts where legislative branch appropriates money for widgets. Well, widgets used by a higher education department. My understanding is the interpretation has always been that the language in the Constitution says that all funds will be appropriated for that purpose. The purpose is higher education, not widgets. So I go down to this level of the department or the cost center, or not department, the accounting unit. So that 6-digit number or 7-digit number at the beginning of each one of those, that's our financial system code number, accounting unit number. If you go to the blue book, Mr. Baker, to answer your question, the blue book is also organized by group as well. You can find that employee appreciation budget under Office of the Chief. They have page numbers on theirs as well. Page 27 in your blue book behind the first tab.
Yes, Mr. Baker.
Kelly, is this really just a bonus pool, or instead of an appreciation day, or is this what?
This budget covers the Employee Appreciation Day, and it also includes the 2% merit pool that is being proposed. We talked about it yesterday. Each of the individual budgets include a 3% merit from whatever funding source the people are paid from. And then, in addition to that, we proposed a 2% merit pool to reside out of Gen Fund.
Okay, yes, Ms. Fulbright.
I have a question for Kelly. One is the 3%, one is the 2%. Is either of them automatic, or is it got to be earned? Is it got to be given a rating by your...
We have a performance appraisal system, and with that system, the employees are evaluated by their supervisors, and the policy states that you can give from 0 to 7%. But for your department, you have to do an average of, it has to average out to 3% because that's all that's in the budget. Most departments are so small that, for example, in our financial resources group, we have 46 employees. Well, we can't give very much more than 3% because that's too small of a pool of people. The additional 2%, there's going to be a proposal for a bonus plan, if you will, for the employees, where it wouldn't be as a percentage of your wage, but it would be if you rank in the top quartile, you could earn up to $1,000. The lower end would be maybe $250. That has not been totally fleshed out, but it would not be based on earning 2% of your salary. It would be a flat amount, but it would still be based on merit and performance.
Thank you.
We want to go through these discretionary funds.
Yes, sir.
You see that starting off, Principal Chief has a slight increase on his budget. The inauguration obviously is a one-time funding, not included in a way as recurring. The charitable contribution has a $727,000 budget increase. That's largely representative of a PACE contribution for the elder care facility here in Tahlequah to fund its first year of operations while it's getting online and getting its Medicare billing and everything up to speed to self-sustain. And I believe that was part of the, Kelly, was that part of the deal with the PACE, was that the tribe was going to fund the first year of operation?
Yes, that was, and that's what has been discussed. An initial contribution was done in 2006, and that was still some of the feasibility work, but they have about 300 of that left. The expected opening date is sometime in January, February timeframe, and this additional contribution would carry them through the first year of operations until they get their revenue stream built up.
Okay. Ms. Jordan?
You're on page 29?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And the charitable contributions was to get what?
The PACE, the first PACE operation up and going, that's the increase. If you look in your detailed blue book, there is a detail of all of the charitable contributions. There's a small amount that is undesignated, and throughout the year, either council will come up with a group that they want to donate to, or the principal chief might request. But those donations are all, it's on page 21, and that lists all of the organizations that we're requesting donations for.
A large percentage of the donated recipients are repeated from this year's budget. There, with the exception of a few not resubmitted. One of them being Zoe Institute and Boys and Girls Club,
And there is an attempt to try to categorize them. We have youth, historical, shelters, crisis intervention, and then other. And there's 20,000 that is undesignated.
And,
Yes.
and besides the Zoe Institute, what else was left out of there?
Friends of the Library, Helping Hands, Boys and Girls Club, Cherokee Arts Association, Muskogee Diabetes, and Merle Home.
Friends of the Library and Art Association is in here. Friends of the Library, 3,000, Art Association, 5,000.
I stand corrected.
And to address Mr. Baker's point, both the Diabetes and the Boys and Girls Club have budgets in other groups.
Okay. Where would those be?
Lost Melanie, I'll get that for you. And the Boys and Girls Club.
There's a Boys and Girls Club county one, but in another division, but that's zero. Employment training. That's it?
Okay.
Where's zero? Yeah.
Okay, I will follow up on that. It was my understanding that that was going to be rolled into a career services program, but I'll check on that.
A competitive type grant where
I think the goal with the Boys and Girls Club was to put together an overall project to make sure that we cover all of the 14 counties and get some input into how they do their after-school programs, get some cultural programs in there. But I'll get you some more information on that.
And the Muskogee Diabetes thing?
I'll have to check with Melanie on that one.
Yes, Mr. Garner.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Doug, can you tell us about the Pace building? How big is that building? What it cost?
About $1,900,000, isn't it?
The current cost is just right around $1.2 million. The original budget or the original cost projection was $960,000. We added $170,000 to that. They ran into some water and sewer issues, and
How large a building is it?
I think it's around 12,000.
One story?
Yes. It's going up over there by the Marcoma property.
Okay.
Okay, so, did that get everyone? So we're gonna follow up with the Muskogee Diabetes and the Boys and Girls Club, and that leaves the
At Zoe Institute, is it someplace else as well?
I didn't see it. Was Zoe anywhere?
Not that I
No.
Zoe Institute, it's a nonprofit that takes care of single moms and with training, and it's a real resource for our departments that they send them to and vice versa.
Just an additional comment, almost no overhead. I mean, it's all going to the participants, the people. Because I didn't know what it was, so I checked into it. And it's all volunteer for the most part, and it's Norma Merriman's group, I think, does a lot of referral to it.
And it's not just Cherokee County. They do Muskogee County, they do Palisade, Adair County. I mean, they take care of a wide spectrum.
Okay. Continuing on, the Constitutional Defense Fund is in the budget for $1.5 million. The Secretary of State's no increase, basically. We've already talked about the Employee Appreciation Day. That totals the $2.2 million increase on the Principal Chief's budget from Gen Fund, and that's the significant increase on the Chief's entire division is underneath this department. There's some smaller increase. Strategy, for instance, has a $184,000 increase, or 54%. That is significant for that department. I believe there's a staffing increase in the strategy department that's driving that. The tribal council, the Legistar system, is not in there. That's a carryover budget that we'll need to add. We'll get a feel for what our carryover is going to be at the end of this month. I'll be probably submitting a carryover budget for Mod 1 for the Legistar. The legislative branch expansion planning, $100,000 is not in there. The tribal council's budget, for everyone's information, is because of the timing of the changeover. I talked with Bill, John, and Linda, and I talked with Meredith, the speaker, about holding off on trying to put together a legislative budget before the inauguration and waiting until things get oriented. We go through, setting up the chairs and co-chairs, and then come back and put together a good, sound legislative branch budget with the players for the next 4 years, instead of me trying to do that and then end up scratching that. So the county agreed to just repeat our current year budget in the system, and that's why you see zero change out beside the 1010-700 account. It's exactly identical to the 07. And I look forward to working with the chair and co-chair finance committee and the speaker and getting a tribal council budget prepared for your consideration. That's why there's no change.
Why did we take out money for the branch expansion feasibility study? Do we not? Is that somewhere else?
No, it's not anywhere else. And to be honest with you, when I thought we were going to repeat last year's budget into this one, I failed to mention that one as well. But I thought we would put it back in there again, but it didn't go back in since it's a project-related budget. And really, this body needs to determine, are we going to do this project or not?
So we do need the money.
If you're going to do the project, you will need some planning funds for Mr. Enlow.
Ms. Watts?
You do architect.
I think I'll yield to Callie, because she may be about to answer this.
We have actually set aside some funds in management resources for planning, not only for the legislative branch, but for judicial, for all of the branches. And I guess it was my understanding that this project would go away because there's this other project doing their overall view. Todd has put out an RFP and I believe actually selected an architect to start doing the preliminary work on this. And of course, we would be coming back to council once we have some plans to say, here's what's recommended for, location for the council, location for the court, and to meet the needs of the expansions in the executive branch.
Yes.
So we're still on track to get us more space.
Yes, it is definitely on track, and in fact, it's moving, and I think Todd will probably have some, at least preliminary recommendations within the next 2 to 3 months.
Is he going to have adequate funding for his pre-planning, pre-construction planning, and architect work? I noticed the courts still have their $100,000 planning budget in here.
Oh, they submitted it again. That may be something that we don't have to fund. I believe that Todd has enough in his request to complete the planning. This year, when we were going through the budget requests as part of the strategic budget committee, capital was a big focus because it's a need. As we continue to grow, we need space for people. But we were getting requests here. They were coming from all over. So what the committee discussed and what we decided to propose to council was, let's not put the construction projects in the budget yet. Let's put in the dollars so that we can make sure we get a good plan. And that was funded in 07 and 08.
Just for everyone's different, I've not been involved in any of the discussions surrounding any of this expansion. Okay, I mean that's something that the administration is doing on behalf of the legislative needs as well. So I need to make that clear. Everyone understands that I'm not,
But we'd be happy to have one.
Yes.
So who is conveying our needs to the feasibility folks?
Well, I'd recommend that this body determine what this body wants and then provide that information to Mr. Enlow and the executive branch for fulfillment and execution.
Yes, Ms. Watts.
I believe that the speaker is looking for input from everybody, but she hasn't formally requested that. But it's just with all the other stuff going on, we haven't stopped to do that part. We just got a lot of other stuff. We had inauguration, and we had State of the Nation with the Cherokee National Holiday. We have a budget to pass. People don't even know what the rest of our facilities look like, let alone how to design a council house or what needs to be in it. So I don't know. I think that the speaker would probably look for guidance to put together a package through the rules or would be appropriate.
And if I may, prior to this council being seated, Todd was already visiting with council members and getting input as far as just some basic information.
Yes.
Everybody knows we need more
What Todd
space.
has, basically. Yes.
I got a question about the 24 employees.
Oh, you're
In your blue book, the repeat of the 07 budget, we have to look at what positions was in the 07 budget.
I was looking at 63, just as overview as we went through this at our book.
There are three. Yeah, if you want to know about the 23 positions, look at page under legislative branch, the back of page 1. I guess it's page 2. That's what we had. Do you want to announce it?
Well, it's, the John's. Well, if you want
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
Guy just brought some information. The Boys and Girls Club should have been in this budget. That $100,000 budget should have been included by career services. It was intended to be, and it just, textual omission. So, if the body would entertain putting
So moved.
that.
Okay. So the motion's been made and seconded that we add 100,000 for the Boys and Girls Club.
Discussion.
Yes, discussion.
Now,
Consistent
where
with last year.
exactly are we gonna put it?
It'll be under career services. If you'll turn to page, I just saw that. I was just there, wasn't I? Oh, there in fact. There. Page 38 of my book. Under career services. Employment training, 10-10-529.
We're gonna add back that
Add back that 100,000.
for Councilperson Watts' motion.
Yes. But we haven't voted on it yet. Is there any further discussion? If there's no further discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. On page 38, we add back the $100,000 to the Boys and Girls Club.
The Muskogee Diabetes Camp can apply to Lisa Perkins. She has administering a grant. They would apply to that. Get with the right people.
we can cover it with the grant dollars rather than
What's it? Diabetes prevention.
On page 38.
It's on page 38, career services.
Okay.
What was that last time?
Okay. Jody, did you get your information you were looking for out of that?
So we got unfilled positions,
Yes, we
like
have
PR
unfilled.
person,
We have,
communications person.
we have unfilled, several
But they're
unfilled.
budgeted for.
Their budget, there's something.
Page is that, Jody?
Let's show what page, because Chanel was talking about this to me yesterday.
They went to Boys and Girls Club, they skipped over this other stuff.
Newsletter, something sent out for counselors to get information.
Did they do anything?
No, we haven't gotten to the other. They suddenly brought it back and said, on page 38, we left off 100,000 and someone made a motion. So we've got to get all together.
Public relations off, that was the intent of that position, I was very, last year.
We're not moving down.
For communications out to the district on behalf of the council.
I can't hear what he's saying.
What did you say?
That position that was in OA, correct me if I'm wrong, some of the councilors that's been here last year, the public relations officer, wasn't the intent of that position was to formulate communications out to the district on behalf of the councilors that represent them?
Yes.
No, this is on the tribal council. but
Tribal council.
Page 2, the big blue one is page 2, under tab 2.
She was asking about the vacant positions in the tribal council's budget from 07, they're still vacant.
But now, we're going to work on that as we go through here or at a separate time?
Can I make a recommendation?
Yes.
We have, obviously, a substantial budget with several unfilled positions. I don't think we've got a situation where we don't have enough provided for in this budget. So if you want to go ahead and get through the process and not feel rushed, then we can work together, and put something together to put for y'all's consideration and do it in Mod 1.
Okay. So, do we hear a motion?
Desires, but
Yes.
I'll make that motion to do it as a mod 1 package a month from now.
For the budget for the legislative branch.
Yeah, and I have a comment, but I need a second. Okay, so I know from our speaker's point of view, we're having the staff write their job descriptions, 'cause at least my personal take, and I think everybody needs to give her input on the staff, whether that's current positions or open positions. Some of our staff need to be reevaluated because I think they need to be at higher salaries. I mean, the whole thing needs to be reevaluated. So with that, I mean, we need a plan, and it needs everybody's input, I think. So make sure you give that input to the speakers so that we can deliver a valid plan to start from in a month.
Is there any further discussion? Okay. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, so we're going to go to the legislative budget
Thank you, Mr.
at a later date.
Yes, and the reason I wanted to make that clear to y'all, because I wanted everyone to understand why. I've got two budgets to prepare, and they've got 400. It looks like I didn't get my two done. But there was a reason behind that, and the timing of everything was just not good. I didn't want to do something and turn around and have to scratch it and do it all over again. Anyway.
To the official branch.
Mr. Chairman, at this point, I guess I would ask for a little guidance on what level of detail would you like to go through these discretionary, the way that I just went through the chief's office? Would you like me to go through each division like that? And explain where these discretionary funds are going up and down? I'm here at your pleasure.
Yes,
Whatever you,
please.
okay. Group 3, Judicial Branch. The Supreme Court, which we might change that has basically no change at all. The District Court has a slight decrease. The Tribal Youth Program subsidy has been removed from the budget, $66,000. And the Bright Future Initiative is coming in at $278,000. I believe that was addressed yesterday on its purpose. The District Court Juvenile Services out of Gen Fund's not changing, and nor is the Judicial Expansion Planning set aside there for $100,000. And I know that last year the Judicial Branch was working with Mr. Enlow's group in the pre-planning stages. So this would be an additional resource, I would assume, for Mr. Enlow to utilize while he's planning work on behalf of the Judicial Branch. The boards and commissions.
Excuse me, Ms. Ketcher.
Sorry to interrupt, Doug. Bill John had a question yesterday on the Bright Futures.
Yes.
We talked to J.R. Clappin. That is a new initiative. It's a delinquency prevention program that they're going to do in Adair County. It does not have anything to do with the Healing to Wellness Court. They anticipate that their grant will last them through December, so they may be coming back early in the year requesting funds for the Juvenile Wellness Court.
So do you think that wellness court something that the court has not brought to the Strategic Budget Planning Committee?
I'm not aware if they have. Do you know if they brought anything for 08?
We had brought an initial budget request to the Strategic Budgeting Committee, and it was reviewed. The Budget Committee recommended that two things, that a proposal was submitted for continued federal funding, and we wanted some feedback on that. And then the second thing was an evaluation of the system and how it's working and whether, we want to continue funding it. And so those were two things that were recommended to the chief. The chief accepted that, and so we're doing an evaluation currently, and we're checking on the continued federal funding as to whether that will be available.
And they're not out of funding yet.
Right.
But are they out October 1, or is it?
Through the end of the calendar year.
The end of the calendar year was what JR had projected.
Okay.
I believe they do. We'll double check and make sure that they did budget their carryover. It's a federal grant that they're operating.
They didn't submit a carryover. They might want to get that in pretty quick. So they'll need to get that in Mod 1. They don't have spending authority at 10-1. Is that something we need to address now?
We could.
Mod 1 won't go into effect until mid-October, and they won't be able to submit it.
What is the carryover?
It is a grant, so our procedure on grants has been to send them to council, reporting package, where you're not actually approving the spending authority on the grant, so we could turn in and mod. It would go in with Mod 1, but they have spending authority as soon as we verify. Right. It's grant reporting only.
My apologies.
Okay.
Had discretionary on the brain. Yeah. Sorry. Let's see. Boards and commissions. The election commission obviously has a significant decrease. The tax commission has a $3.7 million decrease. Now, 1.8 of that is going to be eliminated through the transfer out of the tobacco surtax to where the apportionment it goes to. The gaming commission has a 19% increase, and I think there's some staffing increases on the gaming commission. The Environmental Protection Commission increasing $330,000 gen fund, with $280,000 of that being in the water planning and $80,000 in the cultural resource. Both of those new initiatives addressed yesterday. The Cherokee Publications gen fund budget's nominal increase. The Port Authority and the port feasibility are both removed from this budget. The legal resources, Mr. Chairman.
Yes. Oh, excuse me. Ms. Jordan.
Where did the Arkansas Riverbed go?
The Arkansas Riverbed is normally funded out of DOI self-governance. And it appears that they did not submit a budget. Oh, wait. Or am I overlooking it?
No. The Port Authority and the Riverbed, both budgets are missing.
I always felt like that was a good place to be absorbed by either natural resource or your Ms. Donaldson's group. Maybe could it have went to one of those two places?
No, I don't believe it. I don't believe a budget was submitted, so it didn't make it into here. I believe those dollars are earmarked in our compact, so we could bring forward the carryover into Mod 1 as earmarked.
Mr. Cobb.
I just had a question about the tax commission in your report. Other than that 1.8,
That's what I was thinking.
I think it's the apportionment reserves for the.
I mean, I'm looking at 4.2 to.
I haven't seen it.
I got the 1.8, but where's the? Do I?
Well, this is in the system. This is the downloaded data off the financial system. Can we get back with you on that?
Yeah, I mean,
I think I know what it is, but I want to verify. We may have 2 years' worth of that allocation in the 07 budget for tax.
Comments. That's comments.
I didn't know.
Remember doing last year's? That's just for everyone's benefit. The 3.7 decrease, if you look at on page 30 under tax commission, where I was asking why does the 3.7 decrease when only half of that was would have go away when we put the 08 transfer in. It's because the 07 had 2 years in it. Okay, we did the 06 in 07 once the revenues were available. It was like January, February. Good catch.
Yes, ma'am.
So this will go down.
Yes, Ms. Fulbright.
The 06
Jenna.
shortfall.
We have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, I'm backing up just a little bit to the election commission. I know it would be smaller because this is not going to be an election year, but all of us that dealt with them, I mean, the addresses are, they need help they're really bad, that's all I can say, and is that going to properly fund them to update their records? And there's a terrible problem of coordination between departments. I mean, they don't have the right addresses, like there's no way to coordinate it with registration or medical records or anything, and the addresses they have are all, I don't know, maybe they need a whole new software system. They need help.
Ms.
Good
Watts.
question.
Excuse me, Ms. Watts.
The question has been posed to the election commission, and I believe the official response was that the election commissioners who are still seated until October of this year, I think it's October this year, that they felt like that because the information has to be changed by the individual, so it's the onus on the individual's voting citizen that has to change it. They can't, even though they can do a national change of address and query it and stuff, they can't just change that without a written form with a signature from that individual. And there is money in this budget for database issues, which the tribe faces in almost every department. But even then, one can't change the other necessarily, depending on the privacy issues and stuff. Because it is a very serious issue. I agree, Councilman Fulbright, very serious issue. But there is money, but there has to be separate issues addressed by the election commission and some of the others to really properly address it, even if the data is available, which it is, and we can pay for it. So.
Okay. Any other comments? And Doug, continue.
Okay, I'm continuing on with page 31, Legal Resources Group. That group has a total of 5% increase. With you'll notice that there's a significant increase on the Attorney General budget and a significant decrease due to the removal of the Justice Department budget. Those are coming together into one. So we look at that division compared to the 07 budget in total, and it reflects merely a 5% increase. It's a 19% increase over the 06 actuals, and the meth grant, the meth reduction initiative that began in 07, those budgets are driving on the Marshall side. You can see the significant increase there. Education services for Gen Fund. See the Education Executive Director. This particular group is where we're going to see several initiatives that was discussed yesterday. You can see obviously the public school outreach, $276,000 increase. The Education Data and Development, brand new, $395,000. The History Course Project is reduced from 87 to 30. And the one-time Sequoia High School multi-purpose sound and light system. Again, it was a one-time project, not recurring this year. The childhood development has no change. Sequoia High School has no change on Gen Fund. The higher Mr. Chairman.
Yes, Stephen.
Possibly imposing this question in Councilman Coates. The history course project, that's a $57,000 decrease.
My question, what is that, why the reduction? Everybody know why that's being reduced?
This. That's what I thought too. That was my.
Because you've been fired.
Because you've been fired.
That's been repeated.
Oh. Well,
Okay.
no, never mind.
We'll have to ask Dr. Morton. My memory's not that good. I want to say 07 had a special project in there, but I can't remember what it was.
But you'll get us an answer on that. Okay. Thank you. I assume because she wasn't there anymore.
Thank goodness
Okay.
for staff. It was
Yes.
a one-time expense for a video in 2007.
Okay. Mr. Hoskins first. Mr. Hoskins?
Yeah, just briefly, Mr. Chairman, is the increase in the public school outreach, is that a new, reflect a new initiative, or?
Yes.
And it is it several new initiatives or a single?
Well, I noticed it had a budget last year, but I think it's a relatively new initiative last year that was greatly expanded this year to reach out to all 14 county schools to collect the data.
Data collection of
Yes.
service.
The data collection effort, isn't it?
It's a lot
Oh, wait a minute. No, I've got it mixed up with the one below it. I'm sorry. No, this is an outreach service.
That is an actual outreach service. It was a pilot project, I think, that we started in 2007. Didn't get really going until mid-year, and then this is to fund the full year. I can get you a detailed description of the program if you'd like.
That's fine, I don't want to bog us down the details, but I appreciate that. I think.
Okay. Mr. Baker?
Yeah. Callie, is there some reason why they didn't put the $10,000 in for the scholarship for those that get accepted to the military academies?
If I'm not mistaken, that was in a recent mod. It may have gone into the 07 budget after they prepared the 08.
Okay.
Wasn't that in a mod within the last 2 or 3 months?
The service school?
Yes, the 10,000 for U.S. Service School scholarships.
Yes. That was prepared in like May. So that was mid-year, like 4 months ago.
So before they started their budget?
Well, after they had already submitted their budget. If it was a May mod, it wouldn't have gotten posted until June. So we run into timing issues when a modification is done and we've already completed our process.
Would it offend anybody if I made a motion to put that back in?
Second that.
Motion's been made and seconded to add back $10,000 to the U.S. Service School Scholarship Fund. Is there any discussion?
I was looking at something else and I missed the beginning of the answer to that. Why was it taken out?
There was a relatively late budget, recent, maybe 5 months ago, April timeframe, May. Well, a lot of these programs are compiling their 08 budget around that same time frame. So this thing probably got enacted after the education department submitted their budgets. It could have. We get in a situation where these things there's timing issues.
Dr. Cobb, on these scholarships to the academies, it's a free ride worth $100 and something thousand, but some of them charge them $4,000 up front as a one-time fee to go to these academies. Well, it's a whole lot cheaper on us and a better education than most of our people get for a small amount contribution. And, I mean, I wish we needed $100,000 for this line item, but unfortunately, I think 10's more than enough. But I just think if our kids get accepted, that we ought to belly up and try to help that portion.
Actually, it's more an application fee, isn't it?
Yeah, well, no, they're already accepted, but it's like a one-time fee is what they told me, that they have to pay up front, which is difficult for a lot of folks to come up with.
Mr. Sullivan?
What's the data, how many kids are we serving? And,
I think we only have one right now, is that correct?
I thought we had a couple.
Well, I think we had two, but one academy charges nothing, the other one charges like almost $5,000.
Okay.
I believe that was.
Is it a
One-time deal.
But any time during the academic year, the student could apply, or is it right in the admissions process?
Nations, yeah.
We've got a constituent who's just
Yeah.
starting, so.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I think there's two, but only one was really charged anything.
Okay. Is there any further discussion on the motion? Excuse me.
Now, is this just for the Sequoia High School children?
No.
Or would it be for anyone that's fortunate enough to go like West Point or the Air Force Academy?
Anybody?
To help them get in that one time, get in the door, and then after that, they pay for everything.
Everything's paid for.
Well, I wish we had $1,000.
So, what's the data on the 10,000? Do we anticipate more application people, or?
Yeah, do we need more?
Well, we can always add more, as long as we keep that line item and know that we've got it there for them.
Call for the question.
Any further? Okay. Question's been called. All in favor of adding the 10,000, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay. Excuse me, Dr. Cox.
Taking my time going through this, and I'm missing just bits and pieces of conversations. Tell me why the Pell scholarships went down?
We have for the first time, the general fund subsidized the Pell scholarships in 2007, and we to bring them up to $1,000. Bring their scholarship up to the same $1,000 as the non-Pell. And isn't this the one that we had a duplicate funding in 07?
Quite frankly, I think we put too much money into 07. This came up again a couple months ago, and we added, I think we added $825,000 to the 07 budget to make sure that we were covered. But the number I remember for a year's worth of funding was $825,000.
Kids, I remember that it was much smaller than anticipated. Can you, Dr. Cox?
I don't know if you can answer this. I know you're not in the education department, but can you give me some kind of estimation on how many more per year what kind of percentage increase do you see on those applications per year?
Okay. We can get that.
Because my point is, that's probably close to if you're getting 4 or 5 more applicants. Then
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. The higher education, they already talked about there's a couple of new initiatives in there. There's the Cherokee University obviously has a significant increase, $565,000 from $200 up to $765. And there's also the other two initiatives that was mentioned yesterday and earlier, the leadership curriculum and the youth athletic leadership. You can see they're coming into the budget there on the report.
Yes.
I got a question on Cherokee University. Can you elaborate on that a little bit and what we're doing here?
Sounds like I need to get Dr. Morton over here.
He probably told us not to go.
Off the top of my head, this was a new initiative in 07, and he would be the best person to brief you on this. I can get him over here today within a few minutes if you'd like to do that today.
We're going to be going through all these divisions, probably tomorrow, if just, we're going to be going through the education division by itself at its time tomorrow morning. If that would be...
I just think, I think that
If we, when we have specific questions, programmatic, I can call the group leaders and they can be over here in just a couple of minutes. Yeah.
Okay, Dr. Tom?
I would just like to request that Dr. Morton be here because I'm gathering from the conversations that this group has had that education is pretty important to everybody. And I want to make sure we're funding this correctly. I'd request that he's here.
Mr. Austin?
Yeah, Mr. Chairman, sort of a larger issue as to all of these new initiatives. Is there some sort of narrative available from the departments because some of these issues we might be able to answer by reviewing documents, but I would like to see them over here. So it seems to me that some narrative exists somewhere in some of this.
There's some comments in the...
There are some comments in the book.
Some of them have disclosure in the narrative form. Education.
That's a good point. We always look for improvements. Maybe next year we'll pull all the new initiatives and put it in one section to make it easy to look at because it's kind of distributed throughout all the groups.
Ms. Watts?
We will need a lot more detail from Dr. Morton, but I believe that the university initiative at this point we're still in the feasibility portion, determining whether it's going to be bricks and mortar or whether it's going to be paper partnerships with existing universities. But then they are exploring partnerships for certain degree plans with universities where there's expertise. And I think there's a new initiative for fine arts through like Cherokee Arts and Humanities. So.
And it is on page 21.
There's no mention, unfortunately, to two new initiatives in higher ed in here. I thought there was, but the Cherokee University is in here.
Under white, tab 6, page 21, mentions the Cherokee University. Page 21. Of course, the $565,000 for part-time staff is quite an increase. Okay, so we'll have Dr. Morton here tomorrow morning when we go through the education services.
On the cultural department, under education division, you'll notice the new initiative, listening to the elders, $137,000. There's a significant increase on the comprehensive cultural center, $287,000 or 55%, and a $720,000 increase for the immersion project. The Cherokee Historical Society is also requesting a 9% or $133,000 increase. So the cultural department under education is requesting $1.2 million more than this current year budget. And like I said, the vast majority of that is the immersion in the cultural center.
What about higher education? Explain to me the emergency education assistance.
That's part of the same legislation that funds the community assistance, and those are educational assistance where they fall through the crack. I mean,
Right.
They're emergencies in nature.
They're emergencies. It's normally small dollars, a textbook, or I need to pay my lab fees and I don't have any money to do that. That's administered through the education department. But it's usually, there's the dollar limit on the amount for that, but people apply through education.
About 100.
I think it's less than that.
250. Okay, and that's another, Dr. Morton would expand on that.
Ms. Jordan, yeah.
Under cultural, Who could we have come and talk to us about that new initiative, listening to our elders?
They're going to notify the department head of that.
Could I ask that on each one of the new initiatives, that we at least have somebody come over and, I'm not asking them to defend it or anything, but tell us about it and what their, I would like to know whose idea it is and more about the ideas. Is that a possibility, Kelly? Maybe?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Good, I can't answer the
Sure.
question.
I see Marvin Jones sitting back there. Did he come over to answer a question on the rehab versus the ISP funding? Unless he just wants to sit there, he might have something to say.
Is that why, Mr. Jones? Mr. Jones, there was a question earlier on the rehab, the emergency rehab.
And there was discussion about how the minor emergencies were going to be shifting the money.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
And to see some of you that I knew before you're council people. Yeah. I have to show you more respect, or maybe less, I'm not sure. Was there specific questions?
Mr. Baker.
Yeah, Marvin, apparently we've had a program for several years called Minor Emergencies. And last year, I guess we spent $1,750,000 in it. We started out, maybe $500,000 and spent it in 3 or 4 months, and we put another half in, and then we finished it up. This is a program that we do for the minor emergencies that are up to $5,000. And the reason that we did it that way over the last several years is we were told that using the HOSDA funds, that we have to have an environmental. If there's lead-based paint, they've got to remediate that first. And so what we were finding is trying to do it through the rehab program, it was taking 6 months and maybe never. And with the emergency with tribal dollars, we could actually get in and get out and take care of these folks without all the paperwork. And they have explained to us that they're going to try to do the same thing with NAHASDA dollars, and I don't think it'll work.
Or question?
Well, you've been around a long time, and I'm sure that if we piled up all of these minor emergencies, we could maybe do 20% of them with NAHASDA funds, and the rest of them would be bogged down. Would you agree with that?
I don't know what the answer is.
Yeah.
I can describe that there could be environmental review issues, or depending on what kind of jobs there are. But also, there's some exceptions in the environmental review requirements that would probably allow, I'm assuming, and I don't know, allow certain, whether it's a minimal amount, whether it's all of the money that was used under tribal funds that could be used under NAHASDA funds, without knowing case by case whether or not the exceptions would apply. But there are in the federal regulations exemptions for emergency repairs using federal funds. If it specifically, if you want to look it up, it would be 24 CFR 58.34, and those are exemptions from the regulations, which the only requirement that you have to meet, if it meets the imminent threat requirement, would be a floodplain. A floodplain, looking on a floodplain map takes 5 minutes. and that is essentially done with that, if it meets that particular type of requirement.
But if the house, if the house is pre-70, they have to do a lead-based paint assessment. And if they find lead-based paint, which chances are they are going to, they have to abate it before they use federal funds on it.
And I'm taking that to be a question.
That's a question.
Okay. Even within the lead-based paint requirements, there are exceptions to, certainly if you're going to completely rehab a unit, and you're spending more than X amount of dollars, all of those regulations apply. However, there are some exceptions within those lead-based paint requirements, as well as practically all of the environmental or environmentally related type of regulations, whether it's historic preservation, whether it's endangered species, or any of those. There's exceptions for emergency sorts of certain situations. So again, it's project specific, even on the lead-based paint requirements. That if you're spending a minimal amount of money, and certainly you can do things like that doesn't disturb paint, replacing a roof, generally doesn't disturb paint. You can do those kinds of activities as well as others. So there's exceptions to practically any kind of requirement.
Do we have an Indian housing plan for minor emergencies?
We have within the Indian housing plan, it was intended, and we discussed this in committee probably 2 years ago maybe, where I brought forth an Indian housing plan that expanded the wording to include emergency rehab, which would could include minor repairs, and it was intended as much as possible to take and utilize the federal funds rather than the tribal funds to the extent we could. To the extent that doesn't necessarily mean that it necessarily replaces all of them, because it's certainly if there are certain circumstances where it's a lot quicker, or it's elders and they're disabled and those sorts of things, that you presume to have some tribal funds perhaps to handle those cases.
Well, they've got a waiting list right now where they can spend every rehab dollar that we have in the hospital. And they've got the people already waiting for services. And then we have these groups of emergency housing folks that we did over 500 or 499 last year of these minor emergencies. So where are you going to put those in this list of the rehabs? Plus, a lot of these folks that get the minor emergency then sign up for the rehab. So if we fix them with rehab dollars, we don't come back with rehab dollars later. They're served one time. So, we're shooting ourselves in the foot if we try to do, I want to use the federal dollars first, every possibility we get. But this particular program is the program that when the elders call you and their heat's out, or the roof's leaking, or somebody's kicking their front door, that we can actually get somebody out there and get some action taken care of without them going out and doing an environmental, or going out and seeing if they can do an exception to not doing environmental. You can't just on the phone automatically say, well, we can do an exception on that one. They've still got to go out and do the floodplain and do, these other things. And it's just not very responsive. And our rehab is taking months to do, and we're talking about people that need something almost immediately. And we're talking heat, we're talking water, we're talking air conditioning, we're talking sewer backed up in their house, we're talking They can't lock their front door because somebody's kicked it in, and we're talking folks that don't have resources to mitigate it until we can get there. And I think $100,000 is, when they fully spent the $1.7 million last year, and we didn't waste any money on it, folks. We absolutely didn't.
I have Ms. Fishinghall, Dr. Cobb, Ms. Watts, and Tyne.
I think Connie has to do some what's being talked about, so let her go ahead. Mine's a different point.
Okay, then I have Dr. Cobb.
A couple phrases that popped out when you were talking about floodplain, and then you said you had submitted using federal dollars. Tell me how this scenario plays out into what you were talking about. I'm from Washington County. We had floods. One of the problems that we had up there is people had accepted FEMA dollars or had accepted tribal funds or were going to accept money from Cherokee Nation. And essentially what happened is the federal government viewed that as double dipping, and they couldn't accept FEMA funds and funds from the Cherokee Nation. How does that scenario play out into what you were talking about and also into Councilman Baker's?
I think that those would be FEMA requirements. They wouldn't be the Nahasta or Indian housing requirements. So to the extent that FEMA, if we fund something through the federal Indian housing money, it can be combined with any funds. However, when you go to another agency such as FEMA and they say, if you're getting money from any other place, that counts. Then you do have to live with that. If they're going to accept FEMA money and the Nahasta money or the tribal money plays into that, then it's up to, I think, the families themselves, maybe shorten themselves by getting FEMA. But for the purposes of the Nahasta or the Indian housing money, or certainly the tribal money, there is no double dipping. For example, we could, a lot of places, and we have here in the past, can match tribal money with the Nahasta money, for example, 1-to-1 on a rehab, or spend all federal money, or combine, which is encouraged as a matter of fact. You can, there's some other federal rehab money, such as USDA money, such as the BIA HIT program, as well as other HUD money that can be used for rehab. All of those can be combined with the Nahasta or the Indian housing money. So it's really, again, it's one of those specific cases where if those are the FEMA requirements, sometimes it's better to say, no, I don't want that money. This will go a longer ways.
Okay, so it's not across the board federal monies that just happen to be FEMA.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Watts.
Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Jordan.
Marvin, I know we've caught you a little bit off guard just bringing you over here today, but let me take you back to something that was in another meeting. I think Sharon told us that they had enough money for 800 families for rehab work, and that they had basically assigned out what 800 families will get that work. So if we have emergency rehab coming in, where does that fit into the hierarchy of these families that have already been selected?
Currently, in the FY08 budget, factoring into if we get 08 Indian Housing Plan money, you know about the congressional situation. But if we get in the 08 Indian Housing Plan money, the rehab program have nearly $11 million to spend this fiscal year, October 1, 07 to September 30th of 08. The rehab program has never spent nearly that much money. We hope they do, and they're supposed to be catching up from the past. but, and I certainly don't want to, I don't know how the rehab program is selecting people, you know, and so I don't want to dispute that. I do know how much money's there, and I do know that that's a lot of money in there, and I do know that by having the emergency rehab in the Indian Housing Plan as money, that you don't pre-select the emergency repair people. And so I would hope that our programs are setting aside part of that money specifically for emergencies, and that money's available. But again, I don't know how the programs operate, so I can't answer that specifically.
And that brings up the next question. If you already have these 800 families that need to be served, how quickly will our emergencies rotate into the system? I mean, what's our turnaround time if someone needs their roof redone? Do they get behind and become 801?
Your presumption is that it's going to be paid out in the HOSTA funds?
I mean, if it was, I mean, you know, that's
Okay.
what I'm asking. What's our turnaround time?
Okay, and that's what I tried to indicate was that I would think, or I would hope, and it was intended to be that there's this pool of money for the coming fiscal year out of NAHOSTA money that is sitting there unobligated, unearmarked, specifically for emergencies. Now, how much that might be or could be is dependent upon the program, based on past history, based on other funding, those kinds of things. But again, if they, I don't know specifically how they, I know that they're trying to get applications for rehab, and I don't know how that fits in with saying that they've already pre-selected everybody for whatever funding years they're talking about. I just don't know. You know, if Sharon is here, I'd say now, tell me specifically, you know, what are you referring to? Who have you selected for which Indian housing plan and things?
Okay, and then my final question is, if they take the emergency roof and later need other funds for rehab, are we going to assign the roof a useful life before they can get into another pot of money? Because most NAHOSTA funding, once you do curative work, it has a useful life before they can come back to the table again and ask for more money.
The useful life is for, as it's used in the regulations, is for that particular component. So if you do a roof, how long is that going to last? 15 years, 20 years, whatever it is. So that particular roof will have that useful life. It doesn't mean that they can't come in and get other repairs other than a roof. Unlike, let me give you an example of what you might be referring to, the Housing Improvement Program, the BIA program. You go and do a complete rehab, and it says, I believe in the regulations, you can't get any more repairs for 8 years. Once you get those repairs, whatever those repairs are, you get those, then you're not eligible. Now, HOSTA isn't like that. You could actually do so-called projects where you go replace all the roofs for a number of houses, let's say privately owned houses, 1 year out of 1 year's worth of funding. The next year you could go do foundation work. The third year you could go do sewage work, all for the same group of houses. So the useful life period doesn't factor in, I don't believe, in the kind of question that you're asking. That once you get one little piece, does that knock you out for a certain amount of time?
And finally, do you know whether any emergency rehab money has been set aside in our NAHOSTA funding?
By the program? I don't know. I can't answer that.
I have Mr. Thornton, Mr. Hoskins, and Mr. Baker. Mr. Thorne.
Could I follow up with that question? Okay, because they only have one accounting unit for all of their rehab, and they can, when they use the term rehab, they won't separate out into different accounting units. They won't have something called emergency repairs. They won't have something called replacement houses. They won't have something called anymore lead-based paint housing like we used to have. They have one accounting unit per Indian housing plan. So you'll have an 06 Indian, they'll have an 06 Indian housing plan for rehab from the HOSTA funds, and they'll have an 07 Indian housing plan for rehab from the HOSTA funds, and those won't be broken down any further, so that they have the flexibility to use that fund, and whether for emergencies, replacement houses, rehab, lead-based paint, or whatever other kinds of work that they want to do.
Mr. Thorne.
Then what you're saying, they can use emergency out of any of those funds that's been set aside for rehab or for the housing.
That's correct.
And maybe I misunderstood you, but you're telling me that they can work on floodplain houses that are below the floodplain?
Well, under certain circumstances, it's generally not the case that you want to, or that you have to. What I was saying is that the environmental regulations for these emergency repairs, they're exempt from following the rest of the environmental regulations, with the exception of the floodplain. So all of the other sorts of things, endangered species, the archaeological, and all of those sort of things are exempt from having to go through and follow those. However, the floodplain is still applicable. You have to go look on a floodplain map, and if it's outside of the 100-year floodplain, then everything's okay. Now, if it's within the so-called 100-year floodplain area, then that's when you have to do a little bit more work.
Yeah, I've run into several homes that was in, and they couldn't be worked on. They just wouldn't work on them.
Right.
But that's private homes and also Cherokee Nation homes, right?
That's correct.
Work on both.
That's correct.
But they can't do it inside the floodplain.
That you can do it, but it requires a lot more time and a lot more public notification and things. It's not impossible to do it. It's just it's discouraged to try.
They said the rehab listing was like 800 that they had the money to do. Now they're telling us, and what I've understood and heard, that there's 400 additional on the list. And if you pull emergency funds out of that HOSTA money to do those houses, you know and I know that you're going to run into a house where an old boy applied for emergency housing today, and old boy living next to him applied 2 years ago. But he's going to get his house fixed, the other one didn't. You know, you're going to have those type of problems. I didn't realize that you could take that emergency funding from all one pot. I didn't realize that. I'm glad to know that. But I don't know of them setting much aside for emergency housing, in the housing authority plans the last couple of years.
Yeah, I can't answer that.
I don't remember that good. So, this emergency funding is going to help those people inside the fund. So like Bill said, it's going to help them next week. They're not going to have to wait 2 or 3 months. And if you do start an emergency plan within that, on the HOSTA funding, you might as well get ready, because you're going to have a list. And they'll probably not only have a list of people that need their house worked on, and these people don't have to wait. And they're going to be sitting there waiting just like they're all in rehab. And with that discretionary funding, they don't have to wait. they can spend that discretionary funding. Am I right?
I think history shows that they spent money, so.
Because in our districts alone, yours, mine, and Don's, I took a count last winter, and there would have been over 500 homes worked on since that program started. So, that's a lot of homes and a lot of people been helped that would have been thrown on the list and probably hadn't got to half of them by now if we hadn't used that discretionary funding. I like that program.
If I could follow up, I think my concern has always been, may have been expressed earlier by other people, is that because it's easy to use that fund, that money, that perhaps it is being used instead of some of the federal funds. And as a matter of fact, I think even in committee meetings, I've heard both David Sutherland, the Housing Authority, and I think I've heard Sharon Lay say that the administration of the tribal fund emergency repairs takes a lot of time, and it takes it away from, spending in the HOSTA fund. So I don't know how.
But there's some instances where you can't do an emergency on the house when you HOSTA fund.
I would say that there would be certain circumstances where that would be true.
Mr. Austin.
I have two questions. I'll try to keep it brief. Councilor Baker says it's quicker to use the minor emergency program. You don't disagree with that typically a minor emergency application comes in and it's typically quicker than if they went through the other funding source.
In the way it's operated or in theory?
He's speaking from experience, so he's not speaking from theory. So I guess the way it's operated is.
I think the way it's operated is part of the question as to they prefer to use this money because they believe that they can't use the HOSTA funding as quickly.
Well, that issue aside, it tends to be quicker. Is that in experience? It tends to be quicker. I just want to get a handle on whether that's reality from your perspective.
The way it's currently operated, that would be correct.
And the second question, you said that there's concern about using the minor emergency funds because it's easier, for lack of a better word. They're not using the federal funds. There's these concerns, but is there any evidence that this is actually happening? Are you all tracking that? And can you come to us and say, this is what's happening, and here's the documented cases where they could have went to federal funds. They didn't need the grandmother's roof fixed overnight. They could have waited a little longer.
I think if you're asking, I've seen, and it's been probably maybe a year or so, probably 2 years or so, a year and a half, that I've seen some of the work that they've been doing, and I know that it could have been done under using the HOSTA funds. I know it could, in theory, could be done the same amount of time as tribal funds, but I can't sit here and tell you, and don't pretend to sit here and tell you if 1.7 million that was spent this fiscal year. I can't tell you whether it was 1%, whether it's 99% that fits in that cases. I do know that in the past that
Okay. Bill, John, Jody, Chris, from Tina, and then I'm cutting it off.
And really, I don't have anything for Marvin. I mean, Marvin, you count on one hand the folks in the United States that know as much about NAHOSTA funding, probably half a hand, that know as much as Marvin does about it. The problem is, when we get in our programs, the regs are thick, and they are hard, and people don't want to make mistakes, and they read it, and all of a sudden they find all these reasons why they can't take care of these people with NAHASDA funds. And we do take care of them with the tribal funds. But that being aside, we've got plenty of folks that can use up our federal dollars in the rehabs if we'll just work them through and get it done. And then we've got this whole list of emergencies. We've had as many as 25 emergencies in 1 week, where they call us in and we approved a dozen of them and call us in 2 days later with another dozen. And it happens at the worst times of the year when the temperature is 100 degrees and everybody's air conditioner's failing, and we have these elders out in the community that they need air conditioning, they need it now. We have it in the dead of winter when it's below freezing and the heaters go out, or the ice storm hits, or these other emergencies. And having those dollars to take care of those and have private contractors go out and take care of these emergencies is been a godsend. And I've had elders that appreciated what they got from the $5,000 minor emergency as much as some of the folks that get the $35,000 rehab. It means as much to them, and they get to stay in their home. But the whole point here is we really need Sharon or somebody that knows the program. Marvin knows the plan, but knows the program and how it's really working and how their numbers are stacking up, and have actually worked with them to come and talk to us about the differences, the way it really works and the way we're really helping people. And so I'm making a request that we have Sharon or somebody from her department come in and let's broach this subject, because I really honestly do not believe it's going to work to do our minor emergencies using the NAHASDA dollars.
Okay, and we'll request Kelly to have either Sharon or someone from her staff. Okay, next item, Jody.
I'm concerned because my family owns probably 20 houses in Adair County, scattered all around Adair County. I have yet to go into a closing for when we started researching them, but they don't lie in a floodplain. Out of 20 houses, I say 2 of them has managed to, and that's pretty much how much it is. And you just now told me in the NAHASDA dollars, it's going to be tricky covering houses in the 100-year floodplain. So what's my answer for Adair County, Sequoia County? Don Garvin said the major part of his county is in floodplains, or his area.
She was out of town.
Because it's telling me my people's going to be left out if we fund this with NAHASDA and not with other funds.
In my experience, that's not necessarily the case in any of those counties that you obviously have a different experience. But in the hundreds of cases that I have seen, and the number of cases that the Environmental Review Office says that are in the floodplain that are actually on the maps, within the maps, again, the Environmental Review people can say better than I can how many, but there's not a whole lot of them. There's not a whole lot of houses, because otherwise we wouldn't be rehabbing, wouldn't have selected 800 families across the Cherokee Nation for services if those people aren't in fact eligible, they're housing outside of the 100-year floodplain. So specific cases, I'm sure there are. I know that I can probably name on 2 hands the number of ones that were not served because of being in floodplain.
Mr. Summer.
Here, floodplain.
Yes, I've got 2 questions. One is there a limit on the NAHASDA dollars that can be used for emergency repairs? You talked about a $5,000 cap. Is that applicable to that program as well, or is there a difference?
There's a difference. I'll say what is in the regulations as compared with what's in the Indian Housing Plan. In the regulations, you can spend up to the so-called total development costs. So What that means for a 3-bedroom house is probably, you can spend up to $160,000. But in the Indian Housing Plan, as they're being passed now, I believe that the limit is now 20,000 total, and that would include emergency repairs, like if they were done 2 or 3 different times, that's a cumulative. That's, excuse me, that's a self-imposed.
Right. 20,000, I mean, that's definitely not 5.
Right.
Okay. The other thing is that these dollars apparently did not exist in '06, and we've got a 460-some-odd% increase from '08 budget, but '07 was slightly more than that in total. And a lot of these are in the HUD rehab dollars. Is that, I mean, where were these dollars in '06? Was it happening in another department, or it's just brand new funds that have become available? Because, I mean, that's a pretty significant increase, $10 million for this application. We talk about backlog and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't know if it's applicable to talk about that in a sense that you got an extra $10 million to spend on homes. So what's the issue there?
Are we talking about the federal funds and the HOSTA funds?
I just see this housing rehab, and it was in the '07 budget, and it totaled $10 million. However, in '06, there was only $750,000, and so there's a significant increase in funding there. And so what is our track record in '07 that maybe could calm some of these fears or cause us to be concerned that we do in fact need these emergency funds? I mean, is that something Callie needs to talk about, or can you talk about that?
Yeah, I think I can.
Okay.
I think that's due to the budgeting. That's due to the budgeting because previously in '06, they would have been funded through the Housing Authority.
Okay.
So probably what you're looking at is where is it funded right now? And in '06, it wouldn't have been funded in that particular way. It would have been in a different accounting unit with the Housing Authority. So roughly there's the same amount of money, '06 in '07. For from each Indian housing plan.
Is there a history there, or I mean, is the backlog a result of the management of the previous funding, or what's the history there, Kelly?
I can give you what we have since it's come over to the nation. Rehab came over under the nation during 2006. So if you look at the chart, actual was $2 million. 2007 budget 13, almost 14 million. What I can do is run some reports and let you know how much of that 14 million has been either spent or committed. And I can probably go back and get some similar information from the Housing Authority when they operated the program.
And Tina, and then that's going to close it.
I just make a motion that we put this money back in. There appears to be a great need here. We've not really gotten any questions answered as to where we fall if we move over to NAHASDA funding. Where do we fall in the 800? We may be 400 behind that. What's the timeliness of this? We know what in the past that it's worked. It's been timely, but if we move to NAHASDA, is it going to be timely? Is it going to be assigned a useful life that might prohibit someone else from getting additional work on their home? It seems like let's put this money back in. If they find a better way to solve the problem during the year, then the money might not be used. But for right now, let's put the money back in. I make a motion that we do that we put the money back into the '07 level funding on minor emergency repair.
I'll second that.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded that we increase the funding for the emergency repair.
We have discussion?
Yes.
I would like to hear from Sharon.
Thanks, Marvin.
I would like to hear from Sharon Lay, because I think what Marvin Jones said is right. About if you give a program dollars, they're going to spend the easy dollars first. They're not going to spend their federal dollars. So I think we need to hear from Sharon and see how that goes. If she can do more rehab at the $1,000, I'd like to know what she says about that. I'm not against putting any dollars back in for emergency tribal funds.
And that has
Feel better that we actually
suggested.
do federal funds.
Okay, Ms. Watts.
Thank you. Where will the funding come from?
3.1 million on that on paper.
Okay, did you hear?
Yeah, I didn't, I thought she was mumbling to
No.
herself.
No, I think there's 3.1 million that was on the table at the beginning of today.
I only knew of 2.2 million.
2.9. Okay, it's 2.9 million on the table right now.
I didn't know anybody gave up anything because I understood that the chief's budget was actually committed. So I didn't know that the chief gave up $700,000.
It was-
coming from.
Oh, what was it, $4,700,000?
$700,000 balance, it wasn't.
It was 700 unappropriated, or.
Plus the 4 million less the 1.8. It was the 2.9.
So we're going to consume all our contingency funds or potential contingency funds or?
Is there any other discussion?
I never really heard an answer to Councilman Buzzard's request that he wants to hear from Sharon Lay before. Never heard where we were going to go with that.
Other than the fact that we were going to request that she be here later, but she's out of town today.
Okay.
But we have the motion on the table now, so we can't.
I moved to table this till tomorrow when Sharon Lake can attend and answer the questions.
I think we already have a motion.
No, the motion to
The table
table
precedes the motion on
precedes
the
it.
table.
Is there a second? Okay, the motion's been made and seconded. So all in favor of tabling it, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
No.
No.
Okay, a hand count. All in favor of tabling? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay. And those opposed? 5, 6, okay. So it's tabled until we hear from Sharon Lay.
Should be heard tomorrow.
We will see, or someone else from her department, because she's out of town today, we know. Okay, I recommend, since it's after 5 o'clock, that we recess, but what I would like to suggest is at 9 tomorrow morning, when we start discussion on the education services, that we have Dr. Morton here at 9, and then after that, we go into the health services and put someone on standby from health services. Okay. Mr. Scott, Dr. Scott.
I would just like to suggest, I was looking through here on your new initiatives using the discretionary funds. There's actually 9 groups. If you add those up, I would like to make sure that we just one person talk about, like management resources has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, has 5. Talk about doing it in groups. That way they can get out of here faster and we can be more clear on what's going on.
We're putting together a little paragraph or 2 summary on each of these initiatives, and we'll also include on there which group is sponsoring and what we're managing.
Okay, Doug.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We've been going through these tribal discretionary detail reports.
Yes.
Looking at department by department based on the gen fund. Okay, there's obviously several other funding sources after this one. When we get done with that, that's when I'm prepared to go into the divisional analysis.
Right.
These type of charts where all these things are going to be coming back to light. So, do you want the divisional group leaders to come and discuss it as we're going through these level 3 reports, or do you want them to be able to answer the questions when we're talking specifically only about their group?
Well, it depends on whether they want to go ahead and go through this and save their questions until we get to the next group. Now, if that's acceptable, then we can go ahead and go through this in the morning first and then have
You start moving into the groups one at a
Go
time.
moving into the groups.
Would help them schedule their people better, I think.
Okay, and I'm agreeable to that if everyone else is.
That answered my question.
But we have Marvin over here, I'd like to ask him a question.
Okay, I cut off
Before you have to come back.
I cut off discussion, Marvin, but go ahead. Well, I'll allow this one question. But only one question.
Yes, you can buy me lunch.
Yeah. Marvin, can the panel housing funding come out of HOSDA funding?
It currently is coming, yes. It's
There's no discretionary funding in it?
There's, I don't know every single budget, but I don't believe any money at all is coming for the SIPs out of any tribal discretionary budget.
Okay.
Not while I was here, there wasn't. So what happened in the last year, I don't know, but I believe all of it's coming out in the HOSDA funding.
Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Marvin. And I will entertain a
I'll make
motion
a motion
that we recess until 9 tomorrow morning.
One more.
Okay, all in favor say aye. Aye. Okay. Any opposed?